Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Speed Street podcast. We appreciate you folks being here. A lot going on in the world. The motor racing as a whole is now over, essentially. The Formula One World Championship has now concluded, and everything's off. So everyone's on vacation, essentially, and we're all going into the Christmas holiday. But work still remains for those that are unemployed, like myself. And there are some IndyCar news items that we can discuss, some things going on. And our glorious hero, Pagenaud Award, it was testing in a Formula One car today. Today's Tuesday as we record. And he did well, obviously, as he would, because, again, for people who think that good IndyCar drivers wouldn't compete in Formula One, you're crazy, honestly. So it's just not real. So anyway, that's cool to see. Pagenaud doing well over there, doing good things. And this show, I think, is a really special one because we have someone on the show who really probably has not done a ton of media, a ton of interviews since his accident. Simon Pagenaud is on the show. Obviously, Simon and I have had some comings-togethers out on the racetrack, but really respect him for coming to do this show. It's a long conversation, but it is emotional. It is enlightening. I mean, there's a ton of information that I believe just true race fans and maybe the more just on the surface race fans will enjoy. It was really special to be able to chat with him. So please stay tuned for that. That is, you're gonna like that one. I think I'd say maybe top three interview that we've ever done. What do you think, Chase? It was a good one.
No, definitely a top 3 interview. And look, Simon, for what a guy. I just want to say that this was my first time interacting with Simon. I can't wait for everybody to listen to the show, but I just have to say it is almost a shame because there is a great personality, and I just don't feel like enough people out there in the world have seen that humor side of him. So you get to see a little bit of that in this interview, guys. So you might want to make sure that you stick around, share it, let everybody know what's up, because I mean, he is, whether you like it or not, I mean, he is just one of the larger names over the last few years and did a lot of awesome things. And just a genuine human being, I think, is the biggest part. Like you say, a top 3 interview of all time. And that came through because of how genuine the entire interview was. So
for sure,
gotta love it when you can make those happen. But,
I would agree.
But yeah, it's kind of depressing right now, Connor, because there's no more racing.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I've fallen down rabbit holes online. I'm now entering this world where I'm getting served autonomous racing videos on YouTube.
Tough, yeah.
In my algorithm, and I've had a lot of things to say about it recently. I think it's I don't know, like that's where we are. But I can't watch driverless race cars. It just makes zero sense. Zero.
I agree. I was playing golf at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway when one of those autonomous vehicles crashed, and it sounded very loud. We were about hole 6, and sure enough, they haven't quite been able to do it yet, but it is fascinating what technology can do. However, I don't believe you can actually have a succeeding series that does not have the driver behind it. So I agree. But fascinating technology. Fascinating technology. They've gone through a lot of crash damage, I will say. And probably
definitely a lot of that.
And probably some like school funding or something. I don't know how it's all funded, but hey, respect.
Yeah, big science fair.
Big brain folks. Let's talk about real drivers. Real drivers who are announced to some race cars. So last week after our show, the Dreyer Reinbold racing team, they announced that they have 2 drivers signed up yet again, Ryan Hunter-Reay, but the car that I drove last year will now be driven by Jack Harvey. So that was that's great for them, honestly. I think Jack has deserved another proper shot at the Indy 500. We know that's a good car. That also raises, obviously, a lot of questions about me, because that was, in my life, I probably would have gone back to that opportunity, and that group was waiting on me. But obviously, I have been trying to work on being a full-time IndyCar driver again. So that process is ongoing. I basically have put essentially all of my eggs in one basket, as they say. And everything is either going to be okay or complete disaster and everything is destroyed and I have no racing to do next year. So we're
risking it for the biscuit.
We're risking it for the biscuit. We're trying to raise money and it is really hard. And honestly, it is frustrating me to no end because my job is to be a race car driver. I am not able to focus on being a race car driver currently because there are people who are employed to sell sponsorship and stuff like that. No one's able to do it. And it seems like obviously the driver is the one that is reliant on bringing that in a lot of scenarios. Obviously, some teams have some partnerships. Great.
You're a salesman as well.
Yes. So just working on that and would love to be able to know more about that. But I just don't. And I hope we will know soon. I would like to say things are looking good for myself. But this has been one of the most difficult off seasons I think I've ever gone through. And I've been through a lot. Like last year, kind of pretty much knew like, all right, all we'll have is the 500, but it was a great deal with DRR and I'm going to miss those guys for sure. But this one has literally felt like I'm either in or I am so dead. I have no forms of income. I don't know what is going on. And so it's just frustrating. And then, you see, obviously we're seeing, seats go, Devlin DeFrancesco was announced today at the Rahal Letterman Lanigan racing team, or yesterday he was announced. We obviously all know why that's happening. And if you don't know why, well, this is the kind of the state that motorsport is in right now. Rahal have run 3 cars. They've got 2 drivers that are their guys, right? You've got Graham and you've got Louis Foster, who's Louis Foster, champion, deserving of a seat. And Devlin, of course, has been out. He was at Andretti, had some of the best equipment that you could have. I mean, everyone knows how I feel about Devlin. I mean, his dad was a great supporter of mine for a long time. Really like his dad a lot. Devlin, it's kind of the same thing. Like I would say it to his face too. I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't believe that is the level required to be an IndyCar, but he made the business side work. That's a funding type scenario. That the funding is what makes those types of deals happen. And so congrats to him. Congrats to that group. And hey, go out there and prove people wrong. That's a great position to be in. Hey, Stingray, shout out Stingray. Maybe this is the year where it's proven a lot of folks wrong. So that's an interesting position to be in. But yeah, it's been a tough one, man. This is the last few weeks have been last few months have been excruciatingly annoying. And whereas I should be happy to try to work on something like this, I think our sport really needs to be in a better position for drivers. And I saw James Hinchcliffe talk about this on his show, the Off Track show with Alex Rossi. I'm not sure if you guys have looked at that. But drivers, no matter what, are you're either in with a ton of funding behind you and everything's supported, or like we are absolutely getting destroyed. And then you look at Juan Soto signing a $750-60 million contract to play baseball. Again, I'm not a baseball guy, but I respect being a pro.
He made an appearance in the show,
man, there's a lot of drivers that are willing to show up for 17, 18 IndyCar races and get paid nothing and maybe die. So
it's eye-opening.
That's how psychotic we are. We actually might be psychos. We might need to be put in some sort of therapy counseling. Like maybe that's what we need to be in.
Well, it sounds like you're getting your therapy right now. Your patience is being tested to limits unknown. Like how is that? Are you having a nice metamorphosis inside of patience? And
I can't sleep. I can't do. It's just my entire existence is in other people's control. It's not in my control. All I can do is present folks a reason to get behind me and be like, hey, we're trying to go compete. We did it in a month's time last year. We'd like to have a full season worth of time to go competing or just competing in general. And it's hard, man. It's really hard. So So yeah, it's something that, again, young drivers ask me, like, how do we raise money? I was like, there is no right answer to that. It is so hard for everyone. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I feel like I've raised money every single year for the last several years and have created opportunities for myself. But it is so difficult. And the numbers, the budgets have gone up so much in IndyCar. And I have no idea how these teams are going to sustain themselves at some point. I really don't.
What is inflation?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work, but again, they're to cap off all of this stuff, that's kind of my honest feelings about it. Really excited for the DRR team. There was a lot of articles they put out as well about how they want to get back to full time, which I know Dennis wants to do. I've talked to them about it. They've been, they want to see in 2027 with the new car, maybe another manufacturer. If that would be, ideal, that would be great. Obviously, how do you join the field though? Like with the charter system. But it is great to see that team expressing that level of interest in being full time. And I believe that they can do it. It's a great group, great infrastructure, great people. So there'll be two really good cars, the Indy 500. Devlin's back in the Rahal Letterman Lanigan team. So we had a lot of interesting news. The Formula One World Championship. Huh?
I wanted to get your thoughts real quick on just before we were just talking about the Indy 500. There was a post that came out this past week where Christopher Bell said he would love to compete in Indianapolis 500 race if Toyota would find a way to get involved with IndyCar. What would that process look like?
Well, I don't think Toyota is going to be the one. I would love that. The Toyota people were amazing to work with this year, and just the one race that I did with the Sam Hunt's Xfinity team. But IndyCar is trying to make it so it's not like a new manufacturer has to spend $100 million to get in and compete immediately, because that's very difficult to do. Obviously, you've got Chevy and Honda who have had these same engines for really a long time, like far too long. So they've come down to the tiniest of details to find extra power. So why would a new manufacturer even want to come in if it'll take you 10 years to develop something to compete. So they're all trying to find a way where I believe what will happen, and I believe what they want to happen, is to have some sort of like a similar engine block, right? So everyone, whether there's 3 manufacturers, 4 manufacturers, whatever it is, get an engine, like a base engine block. And, there's going to be a lot of things that are kind of all similar, but where the manufacturers really find the draw is to get into the technology side. How are we going to make more power out of the hybrid unit? How are we going to develop software that is going to give us more power? So
yeah,
I know that that's a big thing for you, Chase, the technology side, but I believe that's truly how they want to get more manufacturers in, is you're going to see differences in the power output out of the hybrid unit. And when we get to 2027, when there's a new, everything should be new, right? So I hope that that's the case. I believe that would be something that would, draw manufacturers in. It's like, all right, well, we don't have to spend $100 million to develop an actual engine package, but we can get in and kind of do a few things here and there that are exciting for shareholders because we're doing hybrid stuff. You know what I mean? So
for sure,
I don't know how that's going to work. I don't even know if that's possible, but that's the way that I believe I see it could be done. And I'm sure other people think the same thing. But I think I've seen more excitement recently about new manufacturers joining, because IndyCar really are working their butts off to try to get a package that is going to be supported by new manufacturers, is going to be supported in general, and that it's exciting for everyone involved. So
it's a beautiful time for open wheel racing in America.
I hope it is. There's still, as I mentioned earlier, the business side is still, I don't know how you sell it. I'm working on it. But we have to have this year on Fox. I cannot stress this enough. And I think this is, I've been around the sport now a long time. I think this is one of the most important years, if not the most important in the last 2 decades. Like it's becoming I mean, when you're asking for, I mean, full budgets for these cars, $10 million, nothing less than $10 million. You know, when I was a rookie, I had a sponsor, you know, the Jonathan Birds, they paid $1 million and I was in for the season. Now I was making $0, but you know, there was you could kind of make it happen. And it was, you know, full budgets for like 4, 5, 6 million if you really wanted a full budget. And now it's like 10 million or we're not competitive. And that is so much money. And I think so we need to produce TV numbers that are worth that. We need to be able to see teams being able to raise the money, not having the Kiffin Simpsons, the Stingrays, the Malukases, the Seagulls, which again, some good drivers in there, right? But a lot of help behind them to kind of sustain some organizations. So
yeah, driver can't pay for the whole team.
Now there will always be that. There will always be that in racing, but it's still wild to see, I guess, how few new partnerships we see, or there's almost no consumer brands. You know, we had 5 Hour Energy in last year with Pietro Fittipaldi and the Rahal team. Like, that's a really cool partnership because you can go out and get 5 Hour Energy and support that, right? But
Absolutely.
you know, we're having to get more creative than ever to, you know, get these partnerships into the series, and it shouldn't be that hard. We would like to be able to sell something to where it's like, yep, we want to get involved. You can't fit another sponsor on a Formula One car. I mean, they've sold everything out there they've sold under the mirror probably. They've sold the driver. They probably sold the driver's underwear, and they don't even know no one can see it. But boy, you're going to be on the right butt cheek of Lando Norris. Like that's worth $1 million. You know what I mean? So it's right. You know, we have to create the demand, and I think this year is really important. Really important for us.
I think that the biggest thing I've seen in F1 that I feel could be easily replicated because of the fan base in IndyCar is a lot of Silicon Valley companies. You see Google Chrome on some of these cars.
Yep.
There's so many apps and startup companies that are
recognizable names. Yeah.
Yes, household names have to be on the car. And I mean, that goes for NASCAR too. NASCAR's in a weird spot as well. And I mean, I was literally just having a conversation with a guy about it. Like losing FedEx, like Joe Gibbs losing some of these guys that they have right now. Like that is very, very bad for brandability and for NASCAR fans. You're used to having a driver, has one sponsor through the whole season.
Well, it's just become more expensive. Yeah.
For sure. And like you see companies like Monster, I mean, they're chopping away at like how they can get their exposure, right? And so it's just a new model. There's new ways they're having to do it. So with IndyCar, I feel like because of where IndyCar currently is, they have an advantage because they're not at a place that F1 and NASCAR is. So it's more of a ground floor slide in for some of these larger brand name companies. And with the Fox exposure there, and depending on how things are as far as social media presence is stepped up and the Indy Next coverage, that opens up a whole new ballpark. So I you can speculate all day long. The beauty of it is, though, is that having guys like Christopher Bell talking about new manufacturers coming and then talking about new brand partners coming in, like, you know, like even like ECR having Splenda with Rossi, like that's a bigger name.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There's little moves happening, but those are the correct moves. And I think that IndyCar, when I say open wheel racing, it's a beautiful time for it. I just feel like because of the exact position they're in versus other companies, that some of these larger brands might say, hey, I can cut a little bit of cost and get in here as opposed to a NASCAR or F1. They got all this TV coverage here. Things are on the rise. Let's go ahead and get it on the ground floor.
Yeah. So we're hoping for the best. I mean, I think that there's a lot of great stuff ahead. I think there's a very competitive Indy 500 field ahead of us. I think it's going to be a very fun season of racing. And I hope to be part of it. I have no idea though. I think the funniest part about this deal is I have people ask me every single day. I even got a random letter in the mail. Someone thought I was testing at Thermal 3 weeks ago. And I was like, that's not me. Like, well, first of all, don't send things to my house if you want them signed.
You have a letter in the mail?
No. People, like, if you want me to sign some things, please send them to like any team that I've driven for. And that's probably the best way. It feels really weird if you send them to my house. So
How do they have
I
your
don't,
address?
I don't even want to get it. I don't know, but apparently that's findable, which I hate to say this now, but please don't send things to my house. That's just weird. I mean, I know it's probably like, oh, like that's okay. There's an easier way to do this. Every team receives things and they ask any driver they've ever had to come in and please sign it for them because they'll send it back. So again, today I'm a little worked up, as you can see. But, there's a lot of information flying out there, a lot of people that are trying to spread rumors, stuff that's just crazy. And I'm like, everyone wants to think they know something, but like until you actually know it as a fact, like just don't, like you don't know it. So I'm a little worked up today. I'm frustrated, but I'm excited about, the next couple weeks. This is a great time of year, honestly. And PRI shows this week as well. So I'll be there at the PRI show. I think I'm going to do some show, like a MAP TV show or something with like Tony Stewart and Danny Sullivan or something like that. I'm not really sure. I think so. Yeah. So, we'll I'll be there just on the Thursday. I think I'm doing an autograph session as well at the Bell Helmets booth, for like 30 minutes. Like 30 minutes, I guess, there. So please, if you'd like to get my autograph instead of sending things to my house, we can go there maybe. And like that, we'll do that.
Autograph time at PRI.
Yeah,
not an address of Connor.
So anyway, that's what's going on in the racing world. I don't know if we're gonna do a show next week or not. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But either way, it's a great time of year, and there's definitely been some news happening. Shout out to McLaren for winning the World Championship of the manufacturers in Formula One. I think Zach Brown is truly, it's very impressive what Zach Brown has done with that McLaren brand, that McLaren group. Zach Brown, I mean, I was like, hey, I think an IndyCar team won the F1 World Championship, technically. Manufacturers Championship. I mean, that's a cool connection. Like, that's a very cool connection that we have. And that is thanks to Zach's vision of what he wanted to create, at McLaren. And so I think that's really cool. There's obviously a lot of drivers that were doing their last race at certain teams. And so I actually enjoyed watching the race. Kind of wild that Max just decided to take out Piastri and then make it kind of interesting for the rest of the race for the Constructors World Championship. But I enjoyed watching that and enjoyed seeing Lando, good friend Lando, have some success there. But yeah, that's kind of all that's going on. Motorsport's over. And I think with that, we need to get to Simon. We've talked far too much about random stuff, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. So probably already have. But anyway, I can't wait for you guys to hear this interview. It's a really, really good one. And it comes from the heart, a lot of it. And I believe that this is one of the best that we've ever done. So let's get to Simon Pagenaud. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we have a really special episode, I believe. I think this driver is someone who has proven so many times that he is extremely successful and extremely talented in multiple different series, multiple ranks of our sport. He has tasted the milk, and I'm sure it tasted very good. IndyCar champion, races, all the race wins, everything. Penske to then Meyer Shank, lots of things, but also a man that we miss now, a man that we sadly experienced a wild crash and has not been in the sport since. But Simon Pagenaud, thank you for being here. This is, I think, really cool because we haven't seen a ton of you, honestly, and which is fine because guess what? You have a life to live. You got a family. I mean, goodness gracious, you got things to do. But tell us how you're doing. Tell us how life is right now.
Hey Connor, it's good to be seen. Quite frankly, it's definitely been life-changing event. Without going into details, it's been a tough 18 months. Also on personal side, I've lost, really close people. So it's been a really tough 18 months. Racing, I consider racing being my whole life. So not being able to get in a race car and feeling what it is just to go through a corner at 220 miles an hour, it's tough. It's not a lack of desire. It's a question of being able to do it. And you know, like I do, when you feel like you can do something special, and all of a sudden it's kind of taken away from you, it's very difficult. But the reason I've been silent, there's not much to say. I'm just trying to recover. A lot of people don't understand why I'm so silent, but I don't have any more to say. And also,
well, it's very hard, right? It's not like you have a leg that you had to re-straighten out. You know what I mean? Like this is a very difficult, and I obviously, my father has been through a lot of concussion stuff over the last few years as well. And so I've seen that there's a lot of time that it takes. But like, is there anything that you want to say to people? Like, hey, this is, I'm excited about this, but also like this has been a tough part, but just kind of your outlook on the situation in general.
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot. I'd say that from a health standpoint, the brain. So there's no secret. It's traumatic brain injury, what I had and what is going on. So I haven't fully recovered. I don't know if I'm going to fully recover, but I'm trying really hard. What I can say is I've discovered a lot of things about myself that I didn't know. And that's my outlook on things. At this point, I'm watching the races from outside. It's actually a really interesting view. I'm just trying to, so people really understand where I'm at. I'm trying to not give myself goals because I don't want to maybe be disappointed. I'd rather take it day by day, see my improvement, than maybe hope, that things will get to a new normal. That's where I'm at. Simple as that.
No, that's good. I mean, hey, it's tough because we obviously want to respect the situation that you're in and the fact that you have taken time away to just, be with the family and recover yourself. No one can fault that at all. I mean, that's exactly what you should be doing, I feel like. And there's so much more, even today, I was just at the IndyCar physical and my goodness, it feels like everything that we are doing is about the brain. Everything that there's even more tests now that help us identify what is going on in our heads. And I assume that's what you're talking about. You've learned there's so much more than we've ever known nowadays.
Oh yeah. 100%. Your dad probably went through it, but
yes.
I believe, I had a discussion with Alain Prost. I had a lot of discussion with previous drivers. Dario Franchitti has been an amazing support as well, but a lot of stuff that they went through were never diagnosed or never allowed them to really understand why this is happening and why did they feel that way. And it's sad in a way because they powered through it and they may have caused a lot more damage. But, it is what it is. We all live in our times. But certainly now IndyCar the doctors have been amazing with my situation, really supportive. I went through a bunch of testing to try and understand, because at one point it was very difficult to figure out. There were so many different things aligning together that was difficult to understand. But the testing that I went through, I thought was unbelievable. And it showed me that, we really care now about the health of the athletes. And I think it's the case in a lot of sports right now. I hope that what happened to me will help the future, will help the IndyCar drivers, the Formula One drivers, and the whole industry, but also other sports, because I think, obviously to this point, I think there's 32 types of different migraines.
Wow.
And they're called migraines because we don't have another name for it. So that's really where we're at in the medicine at this point. A lot of stuff is still to be discovered.
Yeah, that's wild. Well, we appreciate you honestly sharing that, because I think, I know that I didn't get to go to all the races last year, but eventually I made it back into the races, and there are still a lot of people obviously wearing your merch. There's still a lot of people that want to know what's going on, and we've, our listenership is very heavily IndyCar fan base, so I know that they'll appreciate this. And with that, I want to ask you about the season, right? You got to be an observer. You got to see what went on. You're obviously your former team Penske, wins again at the Indy 500. Give us kind of your outlook on what you thought of the year. Some highlights for you, and maybe some lowlights, some things that you're like, how did this happen?
Well, it's been an incredible season, really, and not because I'm an IndyCar fan, but
yeah,
racer.
Me too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I felt like a fan actually watching, but which, by the way, it was awesome to be able to follow the racing on Peacock the way it was. being able to follow every practice in Indianapolis was awesome. So for me, it was interesting. Scott McLaughlin at the beginning of the season asked me if I could get involved with him in helping.
I did hear about this. Yeah, he mentioned it was like a very mysterious.
It was
a mysterious post-race interview. I was kind of cool.
It was mysterious because I wanted to help him, but I felt like I didn't want to be on the front light. I thought it's his job. It's what he does. His intention was to get help from someone else that had been able to win the race in the past. And it wasn't about me. It was about him. So I said, yeah, I help you, but let's just keep me quiet. I don't need to be there in the forefront. So what I'm trying to say is from the beginning of the season, I felt involved and also involved with Tim Penske in other ways. I call myself a performance consultant.
Nice. I
Sounds
like it.
Good. Yeah.
Hey.
It gives me a bit more credit than what really happened, but
it's got to be what Dario is too right now, right? He's some sort of consultant, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Great
I felt like
consultant.
I had to take an official seat in some ways, but for that reason, it was great because I had somebody to really root for, and obviously I knew the ins and outs of what was going on, so that was pretty cool to follow. Obviously, St. Pete opener, big bomb come out right after that, which in a way, I'm just going to be controversial here, but in a way,
I love it. Bring it on.
It brought a lot of attention to IndyCar.
Amen.
Sucks that whatever happens. You believe what you want to believe, in my opinion, but it brought attention to the sport. It was a big explosion after the race, and then the season went on. So, in a way, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
We want to have a little bit of drama. That never hurts, in my opinion. So, and then after that, obviously, Alex Palou. I call him Palou because I'm French, but to me, he's the guy, that you want to look at. He's just on all aspects absolutely perfect. It's very rare to see a driver that has everything. We work on, I call it departments. You try to improve your physical side. You try to improve your mental abilities to bring the car around the track for one lap, then the race. I mean, there's so many different aspects of the sport. He's got it all. The guy has it all, and he doesn't mess up. So
it's true.
He's the guy you want to look at. I mean, he's just honestly, from all the drivers I've come across in my career, probably one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that one. And give us your thoughts on the 500 itself as well, because obviously that, the last few years have been pretty good. I would say, it's not really been that long since you've been in the car at the Speedway. So, that it was kind of, we got to a point where if you're in the middle of the pack, it's very difficult to overtake, and the dirty air became really challenging, but somehow we've still been able to make an entertaining race, it seems. What did you think of this year specifically?
Yeah, I think the racing up front is exciting for the fans. I don't really like the fact that you can't even lead a full lap. And,
Yes.
I remember watching Dario win the race with Scott behind him the entire race, and they just checked out. And they had the best cars, same with Gil de Ferran and Helio Castroneves. It's a much different time, but you could make a car that was outstanding, and you and your team could really shine on that day. Today, it's, anybody can have a shot at it, which there's still a lot of outside factors that come in play. There's still a lot of talent, obviously. It's a different type of race. And it is similar to when I won, but even more so a drag race, drafting racing.
Yes.
And every lap, you're going to get passed, if you lead. But then if you're in the middle of the pack, you really struggle with the air. So IndyCar's done a great job at making sure that the whole pack is together without being dangerous. It's not my favorite type of races, but it makes for a really great show to watch. And this year, I thought the show was amazing. Honestly, hands down to Joseph Newgarden. Man, from lap, if you guys rewatch the race, I believe it was from lap 130, he unhinged himself to a whole different level, and was able to make incredible restarts, put himself in that position to win. So he wasn't in a good position to win at 150, at lap 150, but he put himself in that position and deserves to win big time.
Yeah, you have to do that. I mean, I completely agree. I found myself around him a lot of those times. And again, what separates you, that little bit is one extra spot on a restart or one extra little bit of risk and this, that, and whatever. And he did it. So it's completely understandable. But I'm going to let Chase jump in here as well, because I know he's got a few questions for you also.
Yeah, Simon, nice to meet you, man. I had the pleasure to kind of get to watch you down at IMS during the 500 this year, during the historic car tribute lap. Gil de Ferran, you called him your Yoda. And I know that he was one of those people probably we talked about that we recently lost. And looking at it now, I just remember seeing you and seeing the emotion on your face that day. And I just wanted to know, could you kind of talk to us a little bit about that opportunity, that experience, and looking back on it now, like how much that meant to you as a driver and someone that trained under him?
Yeah, it still means a lot, and it still hurts to have lost him. Gilles, I can't say he still is my Yoda in many ways, because when I make a decision, I always think, what would Gilles do? And I always thought that way. It's someone that really changed my life, because in 2008, I was, Champ Car folded, and unfortunately, I didn't have a ride. He came and picked me up to do the Acura program in sports cars, which launched my career again in sports cars. And then because of that, I got back to IndyCar racing. So not only my racing career, but, he really was my second dad. When my dad didn't have the answer for me, I would use Gilles' opinion, because they're very different. And he was more involved in the sport than my dad was. So then it gave me a better appreciation for what to do and what to do next. But Gilles was an open book to me. So because of him, I became a better person, a better driver, understood better the Indianapolis 500s. And he was so detailed about everything that he did about the speedway that I understood that was the level I needed to take it to. And I went to extremes, maybe too much, but I know he was proud of me for working like that. And that's really, stepping back where I'm at now, I'm glad I remember my career that way. And I'm glad I made those choices to go to extremes, because I have nothing to regret. And that's because of Gilles. Now, the emotion, obviously, the first car that I remember watching on TV at the Speedway was Rick Mears in the Marlboro car.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, my mentor was driving a Marlboro car with Penske. And my dream was to drive for Team Penske. Everything was aligned. And it was obviously a super beautiful tribute to Gilles and Gilles' career. Angela de Ferran was there. Luke and Anna were there. We made a special helmet. My kids were there, which, they are such great support right now for me. So it was a very, very emotional time. I'm still very emotional about it. We have pictures. I don't know if you guys ever seen the Aura frame. You could upload pictures on your phone and go straight to the Aura frame.
Oh, yeah.
And through the day, you get pictures that go through. And we have pictures of that day at home, and, I get to see it every day. It's a very special time, but obviously it's sore to lose him, but it's also great to remember him with moments like that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Hey,
the phone's it's been silent for 18 months.
Hey, this guy's busy. People need to know what's going on. Yeah. So Simon, I want to talk a little bit about what you experienced in this transition from Penske to Meyer-Shank, let's say, and honestly from the non-aeroscreen car to the aeroscreen car, because I still think what's interesting is I think the aeroscreen car, and I don't know, I might have talked to you this before, but I think it's been harder for some drivers to get used to. I think for me personally, the way the car drove before the aeroscreen suited me much better, and I have without a doubt struggled more in this era of the car. And I mean, to be honest, I would say, would you agree that maybe that next era was something that you struggled with as well? Because like I thought the same thing happened to James Hinchcliffe too. I thought there's a couple drivers where you're like, hey, you know, this might be kind of the differing factor in a few different, not necessarily performances, but just overall, just general happiness of finding the limit in the car. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that, or would you agree with that at all?
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. A few days ago, actually, it was yesterday, a photo popped up. I don't know if you saw on my Instagram feed, but photo popped up from 2014. It was Houston Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And it was the
The
DW12.
Oculus car, the orange
everybody,
one.
Everybody hated the DW12.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Me too.
I loved
Yeah.
it. So, and I think I actually reflected on that a bit. I think I came up with my own explanation of it. But so that car on that day, on that weekend, was the best combination of setup, track, everything was absolutely perfection. Like I could not have asked for a better car. And anytime I needed to do the lap time, it was there. We won the race. We got 2 poles, I think. It was awesome. Then, you know, we go to the Aero Kits era, and the car worked really well for me again.
I like that one as well. I love the Aero Kit era for sure. That benefited me.
I was asked about, you know, one day I was asked by a media guy, which inside is infuriating when you get somebody makes assumption when they don't know. He said, it looks like you're better in high aerodynamic, high downforce cars. And I was like, couldn't answer properly because, you know, you don't want to upset the media. Couldn't really. As a Penske driver, you have to be careful what you say back.
Gotta walk that line. Very diplomatic.
The guy has no clue what he's saying.
Love that.
Because essentially, you know, I knew what it was. It's basically, it's just like a plane, right? You're going to a certain speed. Depending on the speed, the pressure of the aero moves forward or rearwards, even side to sides, depending how the car rolls into the corner. And the era of the Aero Kit, the Chevy Aero Kit, was tremendously good with making that center pressure move very little. So you could essentially run a really, really soft car, which gives you grip, mechanical grip, and use a lot of the aerodynamics of the car in a very, very sane way. And I love that because I didn't need to brake in corners that were almost, you know, little brake or no brake. I decided not to brake so I could put more front wing in the car and have a car that was really on the nose without making it evil. And I love that because I could really play with my feet and my hands and be in that limit, perfect limit of too much rotation or none, or just there. When the RR18 came in, man, things changed.
Yes.
The R18 was the current IndyCar without the aero screen. And I really struggled at the beginning to make the thing turn in the middle of the corner. And it was pitchy, meaning that when you would get on the brakes, the thing would grab on the front and you would lose the rear end on entry, which is something I don't like. And then you would get to the mid corner and you couldn't keep the front going, so you would understeer. And that, to me, is all a combination of things I hate the most.
Yes.
But as a good driver, right, you're supposed to, you know, like Will Power would do, you're supposed to work around those problems. Fuck it, you know?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be good
enough.
enough.
Fix it, yeah.
You got to fix it. If you can't fix it with a race car, you got to fix it with your set. Well, unfortunately, I may not have the talent to be able to do that, like a guy like Pagenaud or, you know, who's tremendously talented, or a guy like Montoya, for example, in the days. Those guys could drive around problems. Will Power, amazing with that. I honestly was never at ease starting of 2018. And the car never talked to me. Never talked to me again. When I would go to sports car, do the Daytona 24 hours or other races, bam, it was right back on face. No problem. Easy. Don't even need to think about it. And then back into the IndyCar, and then it would try to be a problem again. And then the aero screen came in and it went even worse because what happened is the weight distribution went forwards. Now the understeer is greater mid-corner. I'm having even more problems. But yeah, I would agree with you, Connor. I feel like you could see the trend with a lot of drivers, certain drivers struggling, other drivers not struggling. And I believe it's actually harder for the drivers that have been in the series longer.
Yes,
because
exactly.
you have to adapt. Where when you come in, fresh mind, you just do. You don't have to think about what was good before. In some ways, I do think Lewis Hamilton's struggling with that type of situation where the car doesn't talk to him well, and it's difficult because the previous cars talk to him so well, so he knows what feels right. In a way, you almost don't want to know what feels right.
Yeah, but honestly, Simon, you absolutely nailed. I was hoping you were going to say all that because it painted a perfect picture, I think, for folks to understand not only at how elite you have to be and how everything has to be right to be a winner in this series, right? Like Simon Pagenaud did not forget how to drive between being a champion and Indy 500. Like you didn't forget what you're doing, but the elements change. It becomes, we have to change as drivers. You have to figure out still the best possible setup with your engineer to suit your style in that car. And sometimes, sometimes people actually don't get that chance to do that, but it is such a challenging sport because of all those changing elements. Would you agree? And all the things
100%.
have to line up. But of course, some drivers, it's a little bit easier. They operate in more of a wider window, you'd say, potentially.
Yeah, but, in a sense, I believe like a Sebastian Bourdais, for example, you put him in the perfect situation for him, the guy is unbeatable.
Yes,
you will not beat
very
him.
good.
I guarantee you, Alex Palou doesn't beat him on a good day. Nobody beats him on a good day. Honestly, I've seen some incredible stuff from Seb being his teammate in Le Mans. The guy's in good conditions, all the good conditions, you can't beat him. But a guy like Alex, for example, maybe Alex actually is the other way than we were. Maybe that car now is perfect for him. Who knows?
Yes.
So, or maybe he's able to adapt really well and has everything else complete. But I think, maybe, a guy like Pato, I'll take Pato for an example because the talent is just massive there. But he's able to drive all these cars at the same level, but maybe he's not able to get the last percent of other things to make himself a contender in the championship every year, So we all have our weaknesses, we all have our strengths, and it's a matter of being able to do what Alex Palou is doing, put it all together on a consistent basis.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that, man. I mean, I found myself just happy listening to that. So I think our listeners will also enjoy that. But Chase, I'm going to go ahead and let you jump in again.
Yeah, so, I want to talk a little bit about Simon Pagenaud, the man, the person, personality-wise. I was looking online, finding some old videos and some old clips of things. I know you were on Dale Jr. Download back in 2019, and I guess because of the circumstances, because you are a Frenchman and you are a racing driver, you do a pretty mean Jean Girard from Talladega Nights.
It does happen.
Are you rusty, or can you still do it well? Is anybody asking you?
Me rusty? You kidding me? Never.
There it is.
I will do what I have to do, my man. I will do it. If I have to break your arm, I will do it.
That was
How many
perfect.
times, do you still get asked that repeatedly?
Oh my
gosh.
Yes,
I do. And I tell you what, if I wasn't asked that question, if I wasn't asked about that, it did so much for my career, to be honest. Like, it broke the ice right away for me coming to America. It was the same year.
That's great, yeah.
So honestly, why not using it? I have a sense of humor that many people didn't get to see because I spent 7 years at Penske, and it's hard to make it transpire because you have to be so serious there. And we had a job at hand. So I'm not a humorist. I'm not a comedian, but I have a great sense of humor outside the racetrack when I'm not working. And I don't mind making fun of myself. That's something that doesn't bother me at
That's
all.
beautiful. That's what it takes, man. I mean, and that kind of leads to the next thing I wanted to ask you. I mean, so, you've got to do a lot of sitting on the sidelines watching racing this year. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, have you kind of paid a little bit more attention closely to the drivers that we have, and not just their ability on track, but off track? And would you have any advice to some of these drivers of how they can, continue to work off the track to build the series, to make it even more of a successful series in America?
But Chase, as honestly, a really awesome question to ask. Drivers are in a tough situation because we are bound by contracts, and sometimes some partners do not like certain attitudes. Some don't like social media. Some don't like certain interviews that you might be involved in. So it's a matter, you always have to ask for approval on what you get yourself involved with and say as well. A lot of the time before an interview, you get key points of what to say. So you're very restricted on how to handle your image and the image of the team. And rightly so. I want to be really careful here with that. We use a platform. For us, it's the IndyCar racing platform. It allows us to have a reach. Within that reach, you try to maximize that and gather as many supporters of yours to follow you and the sport. And then through that, you hope that they have another reach that maybe will bring more people in, and so on and so forth, which is the idea of networking and communities and all that, right? The problem is we can't fully be ourselves.
True.
Because if you are fully yourself, then you're not fully professional in some ways, right? Because people want to see,
Right.
I don't know, people want to see you being silly. People want to see your wealth. And sometimes it bothers the team or the team owner or the sponsors or so on and so forth. And it doesn't align with their belief. So we have to be very careful with that. And it's a matter of wanting to keep your job and wanting to progress. And you want to portray a good image to team owners and sponsors, and you want to portray a good image to the public. And sometimes that just doesn't align. Personally, we tried really, really hard, especially after 2019. I had 10 people on my own personal team. Marketing, logistics, training, 10 people.
Wow.
I invested a shit ton of money to try and grow my brand and make it what I thought it could become. Quickly, I realized there was it was growing slowly, but it was a waste of money because I was blocked. There was nothing else I could do at that point. We just didn't have the reach. So you have to hope that, people like Pagenaud bring a new reach to the sport, and you have to hope that this will grow the sport, bring more people in, more people to be interested into somebody else, and so on and so forth, and it grows. But that takes time. And we have to remind also that 2012, 200,000 people were watching the sport on TV.
Yeah.
So we've grown massively, and it takes time. And the more you grow, I'm studying finances right now. It's called compounded interest.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Big money guy.
Simon
Finance. Yeah, Simon Finance. Yeah.
Yeah. The more you grow, the more it grows. It's like the snowball effect. So
I love that.
So you got to
Would you
believe
say
in
it's
that
interesting because, like you said, you invested a lot in growing your brand, but again, I find this sometimes with the podcast too. We actually don't have enough people that even know about us to where that type of production level and that type of stuff can even be consumed. So essentially, like you are putting up, like, let's say a NASCAR level of production where like those teams all have a ton of folks that are involved, but they also have more people that are generally aware to consume that. Then it makes it worth it for you to do that. Would you? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, totally.
We just don't have enough people that know that we have this stuff to consume, right? That there's enough, that there is consumable awesome content out there by these
getting
talents
the right
that
people
are crazy.
out to the bigger brands, to the bigger eyes, to set up events, and it's easy to argue like there couldn't be enough time in the day for especially for a driver like you guys. You guys got to focus on winning. That's your job.
Yep.
Get out there, find a way to win, find a way to get your best finish. And so when you add that entertainment element into the mix, like I can definitely see how tough that can be. And that's why I like the fact that you went out and you kind of built that team and you're like, I'm going to put my trust in you guys to kind of get that done. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander, like you were saying with Pagenaud. And so, yeah, it's just I do think that the more types of crossover, like I'm sure you've seen what Fox is doing right now with NFL football and college. Like, what is your take on that?
I think it's phenomenal because that's how you open the door, right? That's how you get more people in. That's how you could get people to be like, oh, they're watching football, and then all of a sudden they're like, what? I could watch this weekend. I could watch IndyCar racing. That looks interesting. And it takes, honestly, to all the people that are listening, they know, but to the others, it takes one lap of the Indianapolis 500 to be hooked and watch the series.
Yeah. And you're done. That was me.
You're done and you're in, you know?
Yeah.
And also we have amazing, like some really good personalities out there. Like Scott McLaughlin is amazing, guy. He's the perfect combination of Mr. Serious, Mr. Fun, talent. He's got it all as well. So, we've got so many, and Will Power is another personality that unfortunately we've never really truly seen, but the guy is just from another planet. Yeah. He's just sensational.
Definitely that.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I mean, I really appreciate what you've given us so far, and I don't want to take up your entire day. But I kind of there was two things that you brought up there that I thought would be interesting. First is the Fox deal. I mean, would you ever consider doing like maybe, hey, I'm going to pop in for some commentary at some point, or would you ever do like any driver analyst type stuff? Has that ever entered your thought process?
Well, yes.
Because you know a lot. And honestly, what you even presented today during our interview, I think is very good for people to understand. You paint a good picture. The words mean a lot. And it's like, wow, that sounded very educational.
Well, thanks, Connor. Honestly, it means a lot. It means a lot, especially as a...
Too. Yeah, Andy's a finance guy. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe there's more time in there making more money, but...
Yeah.
First of all, I'm really thankful for the kind words because as a foreigner, I've always been a bit insecure about how I sound. So TV for that is difficult. But as long as people react the way you do, then maybe I would be interested in doing it. Now, you want to sound good and professional on TV so people don't get bored. That's the main thing. And, you do a great job. Inch does a great job. I don't feel like I'm as good. But I certainly know I have a vast knowledge of the sport and can bring something. I feel like my consultancy capacity are pretty good and very interesting to teams and manufacturers. And I might want to look at that quite a bit more in the future. We'll see what happens, obviously, with my racing career as well. But I feel like I have assets that I can bring that will be of interest of mine as well. So, you have, and you know this, you have to do things that you love to be successful at it. And that's always what you got to think about.
All right. Well, one last question. I want to know, it's a two-parter, but with everything going on with Fox, the future of IndyCar, obviously Roger Penske's investment, what do you think? What does IndyCar need next? What's our next step of how do we achieve another level? How do we get closer to that NASCAR level of like everyone knows that we exist, or a lot of people know that we exist? And then I also want your top three in no order, top three for the Indy 500 next year. I want predictions, but that'll be the last part of the question.
Questions. You might have to remind me of the second one.
Okay, sorry.
Question or three questions?
That was a two-parter, one question, but anyway.
Okay. Well, on IndyCar growth, I think there are several ways to look at it. I'm going to try and make it short. There's the business side of things, which I know Roger's thinking about. The business side of things, I think, with the charter is we're entering a really, really good time for the sports. It might not be everybody's opinion, but my personal opinion is so before the charter deal, a team has no value. Your value is your tools,
Yes.
the race car that you bought, the engine you don't even own because it's a lease, the tires you don't own because you rent them, and your engineering. Really, the only asset you have is engineering knowledge. However, as we see in IndyCar, engineers go from one team to another. You lose your knowledge. You have nothing to sell. So you build all this. It costs millions of dollars to run every year. Then all of a sudden you lose the sponsor and you have nothing to sell. And you've worked your whole life building this team up and you got nothing. Which essentially is a bit what race car drivers go through with their own business model. But I'm really pleased to see the charter deal happening because now, it's going to work like a franchise. So basically, if you want to get into the sport, there's no more entries. You have to buy an existing team. And that existing team has a value and it will sold for a certain amount of money. So now the team owner, the sponsors, they actually have capital into the team that's an asset, not just a spend. And I think it's phenomenal for the sport. It will bring more people in, more sponsors, more money, because money attracts money. It's just simple as that.
Yes.
So quality teams, we're going to get more good engineers, more money, more better engineers coming from F1, maybe NASCAR as well. We've seen a lot of crossover actually from NASCAR coming to IndyCar. And I think that's all great stuff. And we actually have seen the driver's salary gone up. McLaren
For some
came
people,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Yes, they've changed the way that the market's been, and I think it's a very good thing. So, business side, yes, great. The marketing side is extremely complicated because it's ever changing, and we see it with the technology sector, the way it's developing with Meta. The media sector is changing massively and we don't know what that's going to be in 5-10 years. So it makes it very difficult to have a strategy knowing which way to go. We've seen Formula One use Netflix in a really good way.
Yep.
We're going to use Fox as much as we can. NASCAR is going a different route in some stuff, some ways. We'll see. It's honestly, you have to be a visionary to have an idea on that. But the marketing side is what's going to help us grow. Like you said, Connor, and people knowing we exist. That's using the right platform at the right time with the right investments. And that's above my pay grade. I have no idea what to do there. No idea.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, where we're at. I think we have, honestly, if you see, drivers like Romain Grosjean coming from Formula One, the talent is outstanding in IndyCar. To me, the level of F1 IndyCar is at the same level of if you take the drivers. So yeah, I think that's where we're at. I think it's great to see teams like Prema coming in from Europe. That's going to bring attention. Very lucky with Chevy and Honda being so involved. I just can't wait to see a new car and maybe open up the rule book.
Yeah,
but that's me being a purist. I hate the formula the way it is now. Whatever.
It's coming. I mean, we saw a funny image of what the new car might look like, so I'm sure you'll see it eventually. But it's there. But give us your top. You give us in no particular order 3 people that will occupy the top 3 positions at the Indy 500 next year.
Occupy or win?
We're not trying to pick a winner. We're just trying to pick 3 people who occupy the top 3. So that means you even have a better chance of the right predictions.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go with my boy Scott McLaughlin for sure.
Yep. Solid pick.
I'm gonna go with you because you always lead it. You always.
I don't even have a job yet, but we're gonna go for it.
You better get one.
I know.
You better get one.
Get one.
We'll go with you because you always lead that race, and you're really good there.
Thank you.
Who else?
You got to get one more.
I mean, there's plenty of guys that are going to lead that race. I'm going to go with Will Power just because.
All right.
Just because.
Man, he struggled last year,
That's
so he needs a rebound.
drivers. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So no 3-time in a row for Joseph Newgarden. That's finally we're cutting it off.
This is going to motivate him.
This is
really motivate him.
This is bulletin board material.
Newgarden is never going to lead a lap in Indy. He's coming out. He's leading every lap. So who knows?
This one's for you, Simon.
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah, that's going to be very funny. Well, Simon, I really appreciate you doing this. Honestly, this went longer than I expected. I didn't mean to take up a ton of time, but I appreciate it.
Awesome.
I think people will love this. We obviously want to see you back in a race car. We don't know if that's going to happen, of course. We want to respect the process. But I know that people are excited to see you behind the wheel again. And even if that doesn't happen, we're probably going to see you at the racetrack at some point. And it looks like you've got, children in race cars now. We've got things going on at the house. That's kind of scary too. Like what do we got? So we appreciate you in general, and honestly, all the best for the future. We want to see you back in a car, and obviously and most importantly, we want to see you as healthy as possible. So that's what matters.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate the time. It was fun talks, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Well, folks, I hope you really enjoyed that interview. It was truly a pleasure to conduct it with Simon, and we appreciate him being on the show. And he said he's going to share the show, which not a lot of drivers do that get on this show. They don't share it. So we appreciate him, and we wish him the best. Want to see him back in a race car, without a doubt. So let's get to a very fantastic segment that I think I've missed. We didn't do it at the last show, it feels like.
I feel like I haven't done it in like months, dude. I feel
know,
like
it does
feels
like we're missing Ricky Treadway. So for the Christmas season, we're going to do a Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of the week.
The greatest event of its kind that's ever been run on.
Let's meet the drivers. Who will make up the field?
This week on the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week, we went with the 1931 Indianapolis 500. Now, the 1931 Indy 500, we've seen some names in this one before, but I'm going to go with the second place finisher. Almost got a win. Fred Frame. Now, what I just learned about Fred Frame is an Indy 500 champion. The next year in 1932. So I don't know if that's fully correct, but Fred Frame is an Indy 500 champion, which is wild. So I didn't know this about Fred Frame. I didn't know that. I just didn't know that he was an Indy 500 champion. So that's really cool. So it says Frederick William Frame, born Frederick William Colbath, I wonder why he changed his last name. Wow.
Colbath, what a name.
Yeah, was an American racing driver, one of the leading AAA championship car drivers of the late 1920s, early 1930s. Frame is best remembered for his victory at the 1932 Indy 500. That's cool. So a New Hampshire fella, a New Hampshire guy. At the young age, Colbath's father departed the family, and by 1910, Isabella had remarried to James Frame. Okay, so dad left, remarried, got it. Okay, now we figured it out. There we go. So Frame began dirt racing in 1922, set his first world record in San Luis Obispo. I have a good friend from San Luis Obispo. Driving a mile on dirt track in 43.4 seconds. That's got to be probably wild back in the day. So Fred has several Indy 500s, 1927 all the way through 1936, which is wild. Looks like 34 he skipped. I don't know if there's a war going on or something back then.
Probably a war.
But yeah, he finished second in the year that we chose, 1931, and then 1932 he was the champion of the Indy 500. So really strong runs from old Freddie here, Fred Frame.
Fred Frame. How did Fred is? I'm assuming Fred Frame has passed by now.
He has passed.
God rest his soul, Fred Frame.
He passed in 1962, age 67, because he was born in 1894.
All right, so he dipped out at the older age. That's cool. I was going to mention with the last name change, like going from Colbath to Frame, maybe like there was like a conversation that happened like during like the Prohibition or something, where the boys were like hanging out, drinking a little bit, and he's like, y'all know all these pictures are out here right now. What are people going to put their pictures in at their house? And he was like, frames. And maybe that was his business plan, but he got beat to the punch.
Maybe, yeah. Well, that's interesting. So Fred Frame, formerly Frederick Colbath, won the Indianapolis 500, but not this year that we've chosen to pick him as the random Indy 500 driver of the week. So that's really cool. I think it's been a long time since we did an Indy 500 champion as a random Indy 500 driver of the week. So that's someone I did not know, and now we know. So if ever we get asked those questions at IndyCar media days and any drivers that listen to the show, which they may or may not, now you know of Fred Frame. Fred Frame is an Indy 500 champion. So
We love Fred Frame.
With that, we appreciate you guys. We don't know if we'll be back next week or not. Maybe. But either way, we will have a great Christmas if we're not back. If we decide to disappear from the world, who knows? But maybe it's going to be a great new year for IndyCar. We'll talk either after Christmas or before. Who knows? I'm not really sure. But thank you guys for listening. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you're listening anywhere, just subscribe, follow, like, whatever, talk about it, share it with a friend. We appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you next week, or maybe not on Speed Street. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.